stuffing your emotions, avoiding your emotions, stewing and brooding. Stuffing, avoiding, stewing, and brooding. Stuffing, avoiding, stewing, and brooding. Those are what I call the 4 deadly sins of emotions. Or, 4 deadly sins, 4 deadly habits or something, you know what I mean, of dealing with emotions. And I was doing all 4 the past couple months. I was doing all 4. I was stuffed, I avoided, I stewed, and I brooded. and and it was just, it's been frustrating. And then boom, it kind of, and I was slowly coming out because I've been back to jujitsu now for a week or 2, which has been great. That's been my therapy. But when I took those 2 months off, it was very tough on my psyche. So I know that added to my emotional unhealthiness and created an unhealthy emotional environment when I stopped doing jujitsu. And so and so I was slowly coming out, and as I've slowly kind of come out, I'm starting to be more intentional at some of the emotional exercise that I've been telling you guys to do the last year and some change, or however long we've been doing this, year and a half. So which is helping. It helps to do these exercises. It does not help to stuff, avoid, stew, and brood. What is going on, EQ gangsters? What's going on? Hope you all are doing tremendously well. This is going to be a follow-up to a post that I did recently on my social media, on my Facebook, expressing a desperate need for prayer. And I want to just follow up. So I have been absolutely overwhelmed at the response, support, encouragement that I received from so many people. And the support was overwhelming. For those of y'all that are watching this on YouTube or listening to this podcast, I definitely may get emotional on this episode. Just so many emotions going into this episode and everything. So for those of y'all who don't know what's going on Saturday night, I'm going to read you this post. And if you see me looking down, for those that are watching on YouTube, I'm reading some notes here, my post. So I shared a post Saturday night. So when this episode drops, maybe it's a week out, but a week after the event. But on Saturday, this is what I posted on my Facebook. Okay, homies, prayer request. I'm preaching tomorrow at 10 a.m. at my church. Why do I need prayer? Number 1, I've never preached before. Number 2, I'm not a pastor and don't play one on TV. Number 3, I cuss. Number 4, I drink. Number 5, I have lots of tattoos. Number 6, I'm a former Army Airborne Ranger in the 82nd Airborne Division. Most of us are not known for our preaching skills. That's definitely not how or why we got hired. Let's see, number 7, I'm slowly coming out of an emotional funk and depression over the past couple months. Number 8, sometimes I feel like I have more issues than Time magazine. I'm not sure who is crazier, me for accepting the invitation to share or my pastor for asking me to. Now, all that being said, I will do my absolute best not to cuss or drink during the message. So now that I think about it, pray for me and the people showing up to church tomorrow. So that was my post. And honestly, man, I was just, it was in a moment of like, yes, I was funny, humorous in the post, probably trying to cover my freaking out that I was doing inside internally. I also just very quickly want to thank you guys for just being on this journey with us, following our podcast, following our YouTube channel. lot of you know we just are still going through a rebrand and remodel. We were EQ for Entrepreneurs. Now we've transitioned to EQ Gangster. For those of y'all on YouTube, you can see my sign in the background in my studio. And then our membership is going to be called EQ Mafia. And that's eqgangster.com/mafia if you want to be a part of our community of folks that are growing ourselves emotionally and growing our emotional intelligence. That's eqgangster.com/EQ Mafia. So just thank you for being a part of this journey with us. And, as you know, if you've been with us for a while, I share my dirty underwear, emotional laundry with you guys because in hopes that you all can, I guess, number one, relate. And then number two, hopefully learn from my lessons learned that I'm learning and applying in my life daily on a regular basis. So this is not, hey, I read this from a book, or I have my PhD from Harvard or PhD from some fancy school. And let me tell you what all these textbooks have told me or taught me. This is like real life stuff that I'm applying in my life every day. Not that that other stuff is not important, not that, PhDs are not valuable or helpful or whatever, but I'm not coming from an academic perspective. I'm coming from a perspective of application in my life for the past, 4 years, lessons that I've learned the past 4 years on this journey. So back to this thing, I used humor in my Facebook post again to cover my extreme nervousness and anxiety and stress and overwhelmed at the responsibility. For me, my background, I love Jesus and I'm, love God's word. I love the Bible and have spent a lot of time in God's word, but I've never been formally trained ever. I don't have a degree in theology or Bible reading or any of the fancy church words that a lot of people use. And I've just spent a lot of time in the Bible, and I love God's word. Love, love, love it. And I was overwhelmed, one, when my pastor asked me, hey, man, I'm going to be out of town. I want you to preach. At the time, I'm like, okay, sure, that's cool. But the closer I got to that date, it just became more and more overwhelming and started to really, my stress, my anxiety, it was like I was feeling it in my chest. I was feeling it in my throat, my head. I felt it all over, man. And I've said this a lot of times in a lot of podcast episodes too, that when you allow yourself to feel emotions, a lot of times that's going to impact you physically as well, because there's a physical demand when you experience your emotions and allow yourself to feel your emotions. So not only am I feeling us all in my body, but it's mentally and emotionally taxing because of the stress and the anxiety and stuff. So I try to cover that stress and anxiety with the humor in my post. And I was just praying, man, that there'd be heck, one person, 2 people, 5 people that would respond to my plea for prayer, because teaching or preaching to somebody else about God's word, I take very, very seriously, very, very, very seriously. The last thing I want to do is mislead or I don't want to say interpret, but misinterpret God's word and be a part of leading somebody astray. And so I was just feeling the magnitude of that responsibility of, 100 people, a couple hundred people, however many people are at church, hear me share. I just was like, God, please don't let me screw these people up by, by not communicating your word accurately or appropriately. And so I put that prayer request up. I put it on my personal Facebook page. I put it in my neighborhood Facebook group. My neighborhood Facebook group, y'all, has a couple thousand people in it. We're in a big neighborhood here in Colorado. And nobody knows me in my neighborhood. I mean, we have one kind of neighbor who lives in the neighborhood who we're super close with, but outside of that, like nobody knows me in our neighborhood. And there were like 150, I think the last time I checked, like 150, likes or engagements, and then probably I want to say like close to 70 comments of people just showing their support and hey, I'll be praying for you, all this stuff. And again, they don't know me from Adam's house cat. And I was just shocked. So if you are part of our neighborhood, I just want to give you a huge, huge gratitude and appreciation for just responding. And then I had one person in the neighborhood reach out and said, "Hey, look, man, I totally appreciate you." And I used the same post. So I just copied and pasted that prayer request post in a few different groups. And this person's like, "Hey, look, I got burnt at church, and because of a big drama with the pastor and the congregation and stuff, and the church split, and it just really hurt me emotionally. But your post really encouraged me. You seem like my kind of people. Can you give me more details about your church?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah, that'd be great." I said, "But now do not judge our church based on my message." So if I freak you out or scare you with my message, like, just know I'm not the normal guy. We have a trained professional who actually knows what he's doing. And so it was just neat that person reached out. So again, if you're in the neighborhood, in my neighborhood, and you're happen to be listening to this for whatever crazy reason, you may be listening to this. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for all your prayers, your support, your encouragement. Then I posted it on my personal Facebook page. And again, man, I was just hoping that I would get just somebody to pray for me, that would think about praying for me while, in preparation for this message. And 664 people, engaged with that post, and 281 comments. And it was overwhelming to get that support from you guys. So if you were part of that 664 or 281 comments of folks that prayed for me or encouraged me, I just can't even tell you. And it was funny. So check this out. It was, and so once I had posted this, and I posted all these at the same time, and then I posted in a group that I started called the 360 Personal Growth Tribe. And also, same deal. A bunch of folks responded and encouraged and reached out. And it was just, again, it was overwhelming. Once I posted in those three spots, I like shut it down and eventually went to bed. So I didn't look. I didn't know if anybody responded, if it just got, went through the normal news feed of people's news feeds and no one saw it. And the next morning, I'm praying. So now I'm getting ready for church and to get ready to go deliver this message. And I'm like, "God, man, I'm not hearing anything from you. Like, give me something, man. Give me some encouragement. Give me some affirmation or something that that I'm not going to screw this up, that I'm going to, you know what I mean? That I'm not going to, yeah, so I'm not going to screw this up." And I didn't hear anything. Right. And then I popped open Facebook and I saw hundreds of these responses. And God's like, "That's my response." Was through all you amazing people that reached out and encouraged me. And I just thought, man, it just blew my mind. Again, it was just so powerful experience, especially, y'all being in this funk, this emotional funk for a couple months, which has been like a double whammy because like this is the space I'm in. I am now in the space of emotions and emotional health and emotional intelligence. I've been intentionally working on it myself for 4 years now. And as a business for the past year, call it for the past year. And so to be dealing with a truckload of pretty intense emotions and to not be doing a good job at managing them, right? Self-management, and to kind of even reverting back to some of my old habits and tendencies after 4 years of working on this stuff was like double depressing because I was like, dude, I should be better than this. I've been working on this stuff for 4 years now, intentionally, not like, oh, every now and then. No, intentionally, I've been working on this stuff. So it was like double depressing because I should know better. And I did all four of the, in fact, I think I just did or I don't know if it's come out yet. So this particular episode that I'm mentioning, it may have come out already. It may not have come out yet, but the four deadly sins of emotions. And this is my own little thing. This is not, obviously, I'm being dramatic. So please understand when I say this, I don't mean they will kill you. It's just a funny spin on the four deadly sins. I've heard that before somewhere or something like that, four deadly sins. So I'm just coining them the four deadly sins of emotions that can lead to very unhealthy, unproductive outcomes in your life. Stuffing your emotions, avoiding your emotions, stewing and brooding. Stuffing, avoiding, stewing, and brooding. Stuffing, avoiding, stewing, and brooding. Those are what I call the four deadly sins of emotions. Or four deadly sins, four deadly habits or something, you know what I mean, of dealing with emotions. And I was doing all four the past couple months. I was doing all four. I was stuffed, I avoided, I stewed, and I brooded. and it was just, it's been frustrating. And then boom, it kind of, and I was slowly coming out because I've been back to jujitsu now for a week or two, which has been great. That's been my therapy. But when I took those 2 months off, it was very tough on my psyche. So I know that added to my emotional unhealthiness and created an unhealthy emotional environment when I stopped doing jujitsu. And so I was slowly coming out, and as I've slowly kind of come out, I'm starting to be more intentional at some of the emotional exercise that I've been telling you guys to do the last year and some change, or however long we've been doing this, year and a half. So which is helping. It helps to do these exercises. It does not help to stuff, avoid, stew, and brood. And so the jits has helped out. And so then boom, it kind of has culminated with this church deal, preaching at this service. And then also I had a number of my college classmates from West Point reach out to me. Just PM me and say, "Hey man, saw your post, bro. Like, what's up? Praying for you." One of my buddies, a guy named Ed Stover, we call him Stovetop Stove. He was a big football player, super dude. And I've just Facebook stalked him over the years. And we honestly, I don't think we've talked in 20 years. But I knew him at school, but he may have known me at school, but he reached out to me. Like, reached out to me and said, "Dude, call me." And at first I didn't even know what he wanted to talk about. He just PM'd me on Facebook and said, "Call me." And so he's my classmate. I know him. He's super dude. And even though we haven't talked in 20 years, when he says, "Call me," I'm like, well, crap. I don't know what Stove wants to talk about, but man, let me check in on it, see what's going on. So I call him up and he's like, "Hey dude, I saw your post. And I just want to make sure you're doing all right. I haven't talked to this guy in 20 years. 25 years. And, it would have been so easy for this guy to just blow through the post. Like, okay, whatever. No, one of my classmates is going through some drama or whatever, not doing so hot or whatever. But he reached out and it was just like, dude, it meant a lot. It meant a lot, man, for Big Stove to reach out and we didn't talk for hours. We talked for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And, I kind of caught him up on what was going on with me. He caught me up on what was going on with him. But it was just, man, the gesture, again, 15-minute call in 25 years, it just meant a lot. And then again, a number of other, some of my other classmates, Mark Councilman, I don't necessarily want to go through everyone's names because Devin Shirley is another one of my classmates reached out to me. Jason Hendricks reached out to me. And some other folks, some other friends and stuff like that have reached out to me and just connected and just, hey man, how are you doing? What's going on? And just for all of you classmates, again, I don't want to miss anybody, but there were just a number of folks that did, and it just meant a lot. And I would just want to encourage you guys. So first of all, just to share how overwhelming the support has been for those of you all that have reached out and encouraged me. Oh, and check this out. Check this out. My crazy story, y'all. Check this crazy story out. You never know, man, how you're going to impact somebody. So if you see somebody that is struggle busting it, man, you don't even have to call them. Just send them a text. Hey, man, I believe in you. Hey, do you want to talk? Hey, I've got 5 minutes, man. I'd love to just check in on you, see how you're doing. Just something. Just reach out. There's so many hurting people out there that, man, even if God puts them on your heart, reach out to them. Zap them a text. Zap them an encouraging quote, a Bible verse, something that can encourage them. Because you don't know. You never know. Just send the message. Just send the message. Here's the crazy story. So a buddy of mine, he's one of my jiu-jitsu coaches. He's a purple belt, and which is a few levels more higher than me in jiu-jitsu. He's been training for a few years longer than me, and he destroys me on the mats. He's told, man, sorry, John Roy is the guy I'm talking about. And he's 30 plus or minus. And ninja in jiu-jitsu, and he's a strong dude, bigger guy, not as big as me, but like muscular. He's got muscles and stuff. But he's a big guy, and so he's kind of taking me under his wing. This is the guy I've been talking about. When I talk about my jiu-jitsu, one of my jiu-jitsu coaches, this is one of the guys I talk about the most on my podcast episodes because he's been instrumental in helping me develop my jiu-jitsu game because I'm a big guy, and so I can't do a lot of these little guy moves where they're doing all these flip arounds and flip the doodles and all these different moves. I can't do that stuff. I'm an old guy. I'm a big guy. Doing this Cirque du Soleil jiu-jitsu stuff just does not fit me. And so with John, him taking me under his wing, he's just been so helpful for me. He could just choose to just destroy me every time we roll and give me no input, advice, or tips. He doesn't. He helps me out and coaches me. No, well, that's not how you do it. This is how you do it. Okay, try this. And he literally has changed my entire jiu-jitsu game and experience. And so I try to do that with the white belts. With white belts that I'm rolling with, hey man, okay, just relax, take it easy, take some breaths. All right, let's try this. Okay, this is how you can sweep me. Okay, try this choke on me. Right, so I'm trying to help. I'm trying to pay it forward, right? So anyway, John Roy just started his own podcast called The Mentor Podcast, if I'm not mistaken, The Mentor Podcast. And he's a firefighter. Yeah, Mentor Podcast is what it's called. Mentor Podcast. Check it out. It's on Spotify. Super guy. John's a super guy. And then his co-host is another one of my jujitsu professors. He's a black belt. Both of these are young guys. And both of them, it's, man, I wish you guys could see. Like, when I roll with these guys, it is like, and again, I'm bigger. I'm physically bigger than both of them. And they like just play around like I'm a 5-year-old. It's crazy. That's one of the reasons why I love jits is like size does not matter in jujitsu when you have skill and technique. And so John has this podcast called Mentor Podcast, and he's just started it. So it'd be great for any of you guys want to go just support him and check him out. In his first episode, now unbeknownst to me, right? So I didn't, I hadn't heard his first episode, but he's like, hey, Noble, check out this first episode of my podcast. I'd love to get your feedback. And I'm like, okay, sweet. Yeah, I'd love to check it out. Because again, he's one of my jits coaches and a good friend of mine. He's been, again, helping me out for the last year or so. And so I'm listening to the podcast and his co-hosts like, okay, they ask each other, okay, who are some of your mentors? Who are some of your mentors? Because it's, again, a podcast on mentorship, which I am passionate about, crazy passionate about mentorship. Healthy mentorship. Let me put that disclaimer in there. Healthy mentorship, not codependent relationship mentorship, but healthy mentorship. Whole another episode for another time. We've talked about it before. If you go back through some of my episodes where Kathy, my wife, does 3 episodes in a row called the dark side of emotional intelligence. The dark side of emotional intelligence. I think it was back in the 20s, somewhere in the 20s, 27, 29, and 31 episodes, something like that. So I'm not about unhealthy unhealthy relationship, mentorship kind of stuff. But I'm passionate about mentorship. Well, anyway, so when they're asking each other, hey, who are some of your mentors? Who are some of your mentors? John, my coach and my JITS mentor, said that I was one of his mentors about like a personal mentor, like about family and parenting and that kind of thing. And I was like, dude, it was overwhelming. I got all emotional. I'm like, dude, John, man, thank you, dude. I had no idea. I'm like, thank you for sharing that, and putting it out on a podcast. Like, wow, crap, dude, that's, thank you, man. And so, John's not one to blow smoke. For those of y'all that know personalities, he's cleric melancholy. So he is not a smoke blower. So he calls it like he sees it. And so he's like, no, dude, it's the real deal. Like it's, you've made a positive impact on me. And I, wanted to, my co-host, John Herrera, asked me, and so I want to be honest. Well, anyway, so John has been a firefighter for 10, 15 years now. And another guy that's another podcaster, and he's a leadership trainer, former military guy in the firehouse, or he with a lot of different fire stations. He's a leadership guy, does a lot of leadership and training for firemen and stuff. And he's got a military background as well. Anyway, he is also this guy. I don't know this guy from Adam's House Cat. This guy is listening to John's podcast because John's like, hey man, check out, you're a leadership guy, give me some feedback on my podcast, check out this podcast. And so this guy's listening to the podcast. Well, then he gets to the part where John mentions my name. And so then this guy reaches out to John and says, dude, do you know Noble? Like Noble Gibbons, like you know him? And so John's like, yeah, he's my friend. He's we roll together a few times a week. I was just at his house. John came over for UFC fights, the last fights. And this guy's like, dude, I've heard him on another podcast, the Military Leader Podcast, talking about emotional intelligent leadership that one of my other buddies runs, a guy named Drew Stedman, who just took over Brigade Command here at Fort Carson. Anyway, so John tells me this story, and he's like, dude, like you're impacting people. And it was just, again, also overwhelming at a time in my life, like how God works, y'all, at a time where, again, kind of coming out of this fog, this emotional kind of funk, and these different, just how good God is with knowing right when we need that encouragement or whatever, between all these responses that people encourage me from my church message, thing that I did, and then and then with this guy hearing another podcast on, and then John's podcast, the mentor podcast, it's just all these little encouraging things that God could have just like, no, dude, like I'm not going to let you know about any of this stuff. I'm not going to have anyone encourage you or whatever. Not going to, I'm not going to have John tell you the story about this guy who was, heard your other podcast, right? All these things. And then check this out. Y'all, this is nuts. We're hanging out with a couple of very successful business folks, entrepreneurs up in kind of the Denver area. And, we went out to dinner together, and I told you at the beginning of this, I love God's word. I love the Bible. Well, when I tell someone a Bible story, it is a little bit different than the actual verbatim Bible story has it. I kind of make it, I kind of make it my own. So I explain a Bible story in kind of modern day terms. And I was telling them the story last night at dinner, the story of David and Goliath, the story of little D and big G. I was telling the story, and they're like, dude, I have never heard the new wave Bible story before. And they were loving it. They were absolutely loving it. It was crazy. And I was like, wow, this is how I roll, man. This is how I tell people Bible stories. And it's still very biblical, right? I mean, I'm going through hitting all the points in the Bible. I'm just modernized. I'm just kind of making it, I don't know, up to date, I guess, making it relevant. Not relevant. That sounds bad. Anyway, if you know me, you know what I'm talking about. If you've heard me share a Bible story before, I may even start a podcast, a whole separate podcast, sharing Noble's version of Bible stories. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And so, but it was just encouraging to see how encouraged they were. In fact, check this out. The waiter's like, dude, what are you guys doing? Like, because everyone was all into it and stuff. And my other buddies at the table were like, dude, stop what you're doing. And like, you got to listen to this story. You have to listen to the story. And about that time, another waitress saw that our waiter was holding the plates that we had just finished. She takes the plates away from him. Hey, I'll take these for you. And takes him to the kitchen so that he can stay. And boom, I'm like, bro, see how God works. God brought this other waitress to take your plate so you could come and stay for a little while, right, at our table. And his name was Joe. The waiter's name was Joe. And he's like, dude, let me hear what's going on. And so boom, I rewound a little bit, started into the David and Goliath story. And he's like, dude, I would absolutely read the Bible if it was the way you just said it. He's like, this is the best version I've ever heard in my life. And it was still, again, it was still 1 Samuel 17. It was still the story of David and Goliath. I just put the Noble spin on a little bit, the Noble flavor, the Noble salsa in there. So anyway, but it was just such an encouragement to me to see other people be so encouraged by this Bible story. So all these different ways that God has been encouraging me in the midst of, I don't know, a kind of a depression, over the past couple months, a dark season of my life. It's just been really encouraging and again, overwhelming at the encouragement. And so I for those you all again that have reached out to me and encouraged me, man, obviously I want to do this podcast to encourage you guys and also encourage you to encourage others and reach out, even if they seem like they're doing well. Because in fact, that's been some of the feedback. They're like, dude, I never would have thought that you'd been struggling like this. And which is also part of the problem is we are all, and I'm the master at it, at masking and putting a facade on and faking the funk on the nasty dunk. I can fake people out that, oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing because I'm supposed to be doing good. I'm supposed to be Mr. Happy, Mr. EQ guy, even though I'm sucking inside. And so that's what I was doing. I was faking the funk and not reaching out to anybody, not asking for help or prayer requests or that kind of thing until a couple months into it. And so also, I guess the other lesson is if you're sucking, if you're hurting, reach out to somebody. Reach out for help. Reach out for prayer requests. Reach out for just a chat, a conversation. Reach out. If you need help, get help. If you need help, get help. If you need help, get help. And if you think that you can make it through life alone, and it's funny, one of my favorite songs but it's funny because it's not true, but I still like the song even though it's not true. It's an old school Simon and Garfunkel song called I Am a Rock. If you haven't heard it, it's pretty legit. But again, it's not true. No one's a rock. No one is an island. You can't. You will have a very rough, difficult life. And again, especially with all the stuff that's going on right now. Man, please let me encourage you guys. Regardless of what the government says or whose government, because I know some of y'all are living around the world who are listening to this podcast, please stay connected to your support network, your social network, your friends, your family, regardless of what the government tells you to do. Hey, you can't talk to anybody, you can't meet anybody, you can't see anybody, lock yourself in your room and don't come out for 6 more months. Please stay connected. Stay connected emotionally, relationally, socially, regardless of what the government tells you to do. It is the silent pandemic, which I've also talked about in some of these episodes. The silent pandemic is the exponential rate of suicide, depression, domestic abuse, addiction, alcoholism, drug addiction, drug overdoses, as a result of locking people up and telling them to not be connected with people and to isolate yourself don't come out of your house or whatever. Please stay connected, y'all. Please reach out if you need help. Get professional help. Seek out a counselor. Seek out a therapist, something. But please stay connected to your friends, to your relational, emotional support network. And like I say all the time too, emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally. The healthier you get emotionally, the more it's going to bless and benefit and impact everyone else around you. Check this out. Another fun, super cool thing that I'm going to be doing this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States, 8 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States. I'm going to be doing a free webinar on EQ 101. EQ 101, Emotional Intelligence 101, kind of an introduction, overview to emotional intelligence. This Thursday, live Zoom. We would love to have you all be a part of it. Even if you are further down the road in your emotional intelligence, for you to be a testimony or to be able to say some stuff on, hey, here's how EQ has helped me out. Here's how my emotional growth journey has helped me out. We would love to have you. You'll be able to check that. You can register or whatever. Check that out at eqgangster.com/EQ101. eqgangster.com/EQ101. We would love to have you. Let your friends know. Let your family know. Maybe send that link. Share that link with your friends and family, some of your coworkers, your colleagues. eqgangster.com/EQ101.